This is Gamma Jack.
Yeah, I've fought my fair share of villains, and they all have their own unique challenges. But I tell you, once in a while, the real kicker is I get these dames, man, these dame villains, and they got the curves and the hair and the big eyes, and boy, those ones, they're really, really hard to kill.
This audio file, along with a single image, is the only information we actually have on him. But even with that, he's single-handedly taken over the entire internet, with dozens of theories and predictions all revolving around him.
Part of my job is to prioritize which villains I'm going to combat.
Well, what if I told you it was much deeper than you think? What if I told you that Gamma Jack has a story that nobody has uncovered till today? Not the theorizer or Alex Bale, or even the guy who made the original video resurfacing the NSA tapes, but is 100% canon. One of hope in the story of living past one's death, but also one of nuclear disaster, of a son unloved by his titan of father who led him to be the Zeus to his Kronos. Because not only do I have hardcore evidence from the chemical makeup of Gamma Jack's powers and how it leads to nuclear disaster, but how in-universe this conspiracy reshapes the entire Incredibles lore and timeline in a way you will never be able to watch the films the same way again. Because Gamma Jack is responsible and physically is the atomic bomb that ended World War II. For me and many others, this conspiracy, or really just an internet-wide obsession with Gamma Jack, began with this video by Cartoon Shy. Now, this video is not a theory on Gamma Jack or even on the Incredibles, but more just open Pandora's box for the NSA files. See, the NSA files is bonus content found inside the Incredibles DVD depicting recorded tapes for dozens of supers in the Incredibles universe, where we uncover some really shocking things. We get a list of powers, weaknesses, and personality traits collected by the NSA, which in this universe, instead of standing for the National Security Agency, is the National Super Agency. This is very important and will come up later. Now, for over a decade, these tapes have gone pretty much unnoticed on the internet till Cartoon Shy made this video. And well, once he did, Gamma Jack, one of the many characters from these tapes, went viral.
You know, I take a look around, I see if there's any good-looking women who need to be rescued immediately, and then I sort of start from there and work my way down the list.
Hundreds of edits and animations flooding the internet.
Buddy, what happened? Isn't Mr. Incredible returning your calls?
Dozens of theories, even from Alex Bale, who notoriously never covers trending topics.
What if Gamma Jack isn't just some background character? What if he's someone who's been hiding in plain sight all of this time? I believe that Gamma Jack is actually Jack from the future.
This man took the internet by storm, all observed with his shocking behavior towards how he deals with villains and how he's the only superhero in this kid's franchise to kill.
Boy, those ones, they're really, really hard to kill.
And that, for most, is where he ends. He's just some crazy super supremacist who has some very clippable and viral lines in the minute of audio that exists of him. Well, for me, that's not where this story ends. No, Gamma Jack has a much bigger conspiracy to him that when you put all the puzzle pieces together, creates a single theory that redefines his universe, the story of Incredibles, and why supers exist in the first place. And it all begins with him, not Gamma Jack, but Jack Pines. 1945. It was the end of World War II, the golden era of supers, but more importantly for Jack, the birth of his son. See, Gamma Jack, one known as a ladies' man, has actually settled down with another super, Psychwave.
So in high school, that's when I realized I had the ability to possess other people, to send psychic waves to other people to get them to do things that I really wanted them to do.
Now, Psychwave has a little itty-bitty detail to her that many may miss and truly isn't that big of a deal, but could make her a prime partner for a Gamma Jack. She's a psychopath.
I had a crush on the quarterback of the football team who was also my best friend's boyfriend. I psych-waved him into asking me to the homecoming dance and breaking up with Shelly.
Psychwave is not only an insane, horrible being who violates people around her, is obsessed with romance and stealing men from their girlfriends, but also is so powerful she can mind control people through photos. Psychwave is just easily the best super when it comes down to who Gamma Jack would be with and even have a family. Now, good old Jack does have a problem now though, being that he has two very important responsibilities: taking care of a kid it and being a superhero. This is a very complex dilemma that was very difficult for even the Lazagirl, driving her to retire, so it would be perfectly understandable if Gamma Jack retired or took a break from hero work. Sadly, that's not how the story goes. Jack could never just stop being a hero. No, he needed this to show the world his greatness, because he was a superior being. He was a super.
These people are lucky to share the city with supers. Half of them don't deserve us.
This would have negative effects though, mainly on the child who now is being neglected by his father. This could create some harmful ideas in this child as he grows older, that because his mother is also a crazy super, wouldn't exactly be stopped by her either. Ideas like supers are the cause of his problems, that being super is what tore his family apart. But thankfully, I think those ideas would take way longer to fully develop and need a pivotal moment that truly broke the child's dreams and worldview that he desperately holds onto because of his father. Sadly, if you know where I'm going with this, you know how this ends.
My name is Incrediboy. Hey, aren't you curious about how I get around so fast? See, I have these rocket boots.
Go
They're
home,
made-
buddy.
What?
Now.
This is because I don't have powers, isn't it? Well, not every superhero has powers, you know. You can be super without them.
Buddy Pines is the child of Gamma Jack and Psychwave, growing up in a dysfunctional home with a distant father who puts all his attention and love into being a superhero, hating his own son for being born of an inferior race, a non-super. His mother, while taking time to raise him and finding him opportunities to find his own love in supers like the Mr. Incredible's fan club, was at the end of the day an insane narcissist who truly wasn't a great parent. But Buddy still had one thing, one single person he could hold on to as an unbreakable force that would keep not his family together, but at the very least him together. Mr. Incredible, his hero. Mr. Incredible was a hero who went on interviews all the time talking about wanting to have a family, but wanting to be a father and a hero.
Sometimes I think I just like the simple life, you know, relax a little and raise a family.
He wanted to do what his own father could not, which made him his idol. He was a hero who saved everyone, not just women who caught his eye. He was a true superhero, and Buddy Pines wanted to be him, which, as you know, did not end very well. Buddy, in a twisted, accidental way, caused the events that had superheroes made illegal, who made Mr. Incredible illegal, who made his father illegal. But he wasn't worried about superheroes or his father or anyone else. No, he was angry. Angry at Mr. Incredible for rejecting him, not seeing that he could be a hero. Angry at his father for dismissing him for not being a super. It was all their fault. They deserved to be illegal. All of them. And while that anger grew and grew, and as his father became more and more distant, but no longer having escaped to run off to, Buddy only became more angry. So he made a plan. If he couldn't be a hero, nobody deserved to be. Not his father, not Mr. Incredible, nobody. And he would make sure of it. Them being illegal though wasn't enough for him. No, they had to die for what they did. His father had to die. And in that moment, Buddy Pines was gone, and now all that was left was Syndrome, the man who would end all supers, and it began with going to the Makers. The NSA. I said they'd be important earlier, but I didn't really express how important they'd be. The NSA on surface is simply put the agency that protects and provides payment for supers. Yes, they obviously do more, but on the surface that seems to be their job. Even when supers are illegal, they're still protecting them with the Relocation Act. Really, it does seem the NSA isn't really that bad. Sure, the government may have some problems, but this specific agency of theirs seems to be alright. Yeah, no, that's just not true. The NSA is easily one of the most evil, hypocritical organizations you can imagine, being the cause of every problem that appears in this universe. And it all starts with Syndrome. Syndrome was on a mission. He needed to find some sort of funding and just generally be provided resources to begin his massacre. So he began his search, and thankfully someone found him. Rick Dicker. Rick was an interesting man. He had also had reasons beyond any more selfish ones to kill supers, but it did seem like they were pretty aligned. Rick Dicker was also at the head of the NSA, or at least at the very top. He had information like the NSA files, which had so much information on the weaknesses and personalities that could be exploited for each and every super. They also had a lot of money and a lot of soldiers that could be provided to Syndrome. But the real question Syndrome had was why? This seemed to be way too good to be true. The very creators and agency behind the supers and wanting them massacred, it just simply didn't make sense. But he didn't really care. As long as he kept getting lots of money and resources, he was very happy. Now, while he didn't really care about why this was happening on the NSA side, there was actually a reason, and it was actually very similar to his own: Project Kronos. This is the very password of Syndrome's computer, which was once the NSA's, an obvious reference to the great titan Kronos, the titan that ate all his children till Zeus finally defeated him. In Syndrome's case, it's obvious he's Zeus, overthrowing his evil father Kronos, or Gamma Jack. He's the real Greek god, saving everyone from the supers. But for the NSA, it's actually the opposite. The NSA is Kronos, the titan who gave birth to Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon, children that he would devour out of fear they would overthrow him. Now, this story is very similar to the NSA. We don't know how they treated supers, but we can assume they did, and we know they're a part of the government, which according to Rick Dicker himself, doesn't exactly like supers. Now, why doesn't the NSA not like supers? Well, because they fear them. They are single human beings who hold the powers to nuke cities, cause earthquakes because of a hangover, or literally mind control anyone through a photo. Supers aren't gods. They are just people in costumes, but they do hold the power of gods. And that's a very dangerous combination for a government organization trying to contain and hold power over them. People don't look at the NSA when the day is saved. They look to supers. They also cost so much money and so many lawsuits and just aren't really benefiting the NSA at all. So when Mr. Incredible, or really Syndrome, ended up getting supers illegal, they were thrilled, but they still had a nagging, annoying problem. Supers didn't want to be illegal. Supers like Gazer Beam went on to fight for super rights and campaigned for them to be reinstated as the country's protectors. This was obviously not what the NSA wanted. No, they wanted this little mistake of theirs to just go away and spend however much money they could till it did. And eventually the Relocation Act simply wasn't enough. So they took things to the next level. They began Project Kronos. And with this new mission, to kill every super who got in their way, they needed a guy with the brains, and more importantly, the motive to basically be their assassin. And Syndrome was that guy. The guy who would take out any super, even his parents, which it seems was one of the very first people he killed, at least his mother. And I assume after a good amount of kills under his belt, the super world began to realize something was going on. Heroes were going missing, something Gamma Jack would be very worried about, as both his child and wife were gone. Sure, he wasn't a great father or husband, but he still was at least interested in where they went. So, when a mysterious woman came knocking with maybe an offer to find them, he was ready. But then, when he got to the island, he had to confront something he never thought he would have to. His own inferior son had killed dozens of supers, had killed his wife, and now he was about to kill him. This is what actually got Gamma Jack killed. Not him being caught off guard by the sheer power of the Omnidroid, nor his love for his son, but just the pure confusion and shock of a being of inferiority daring to try something so bold. And before he could even try to fight back, there was a metal arm in his stomach and he was bleeding out. But he was a super. He couldn't just die like this to some hunk of metal. He couldn't bleed out like some non-super. He was supposed to be a god. So how did something so small kill him? And that was the end of Gamma Jack, killed by the man who was once his son, now dead set on the single goal of murdering every other super. He was now lifeless and alone. In my opinion, this is the true story of Gamma Jack and his son, but it doesn't really make me wonder, why does Gamma Jack see himself so highly? Why does he believe himself to be a god? And why is he even super in the first place? What even are supers really? And really, the biggest question you probably still have, how did Gamma Jack end World War II? Well, it all begins with a single woman, the true creators of supers. Her name is Edna Mode. What is a superhero? Like in the real sense? Well, it's a comic book thing used originally for basically war propaganda, or at least to inspire the masses, to unite people under characters like Captain America or Superman, gods amongst men who fought the bad guys and protected America. Well, this would be likely the same for the Incredibles universe, except in a sci-fi hyper-tech world with geniuses who can create technology we don't even have today. I would say it would be taken to the next level, not just gods on paper to inspire the people, but physical gods that can fight and defeat the enemy, gods controlled by the people, or well, at least the people at top, who would use these superheroes to unite America as one force of nature. Now, the signs of how they would do this is out of the scope of this video, but they're clearly way ahead of us even in the 40s, so I assume they could do it. Now, how does this relate to Edna Mode? Well, a lot. I think Edna Mode is secretly the lead creator of the super program, designing the first supers in existence. And well, I think the super is Gamma Jack. This, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense. They basically share the same exact worldview on supers. Like, literally the same worldview.
You are a tiny god. I used to design for gods. They are lucky to be in your presence.
These people are lucky to share the city with supers.
He also is gamma related out of all the forms of radiation or just general powers, which feels very poignant in World War II. So maybe, just maybe, Gamma Jack was this universe's version of the atomic bomb, being the crazy superhuman weapon that could single-handedly end a war. And it also sadly makes sense for why Jack would do this. He, out of all supers, if told to, would most likely commit, well, mass murder, because they're just human, non-supers. They're basically below him. Now, there are two details you're probably thinking about that could very much hold back this idea, being if Gamma Jack is so similar to Edna because he is created by her or turned into a soup, then why does he also have our two most hated qualities, being that he's obsessed with fame and he wears a cape? Well, I came to this conclusion. Gamma Jack is the reason she doesn't like these things. In my mind, she's sort of a hypocrite, or at least ignores these straight up flaws in Gamma Jack. Being he is the first god she created, she most likely puts him on a pedestal above all other supers. Of course, he is allowed to bask in the glory of being a super. He is a true original god. He is Gamma Jack. I imagine she basically logifies his problems, from his straight kill count to his love for the ladies, and how that's definitely getting in the way of being a hero, as in being entitled to those things. But the cape part is still kind of weird because it puts him in danger, which she probably wouldn't like. But to be honest, I think her logic would just be, who is she to deny a god of looking cool? Basically, I think she craved as a hypocrite. Now, the story does create a very cool and interesting idea that in my opinion turns a common theory into an actual thematical and really cool story. See, there's a common theory that Edna Mode designed Cinder's suit and intentionally gave him a cape to, well, kill him. While I do believe this, I don't think it's for the good of the powers or to stop the killing. No, it's for Gamma Jack. In her eyes, he is dishonoring the gift of being his son, and more importantly, literally killing him. He basically is the exact opposite of her beliefs, so when given the opportunity, I would assume she is very willing to give his suit a little upgrade, one that ends in his demise. So really, it all comes down to Edna. She created the supers in the first place, which through Gamma Jack went on to end World War II and protect America during the Golden Era. She then went on to design suits of the gods she created, and when Centrum started killing her creations, she was the one who got the final blow. And really, that is the story of Gamma Jack, the history of supers, and how he ended World War II.